So the title of this is A Dream Come True. So let's rewind. You started the process of moving from Texas to Oregon 4 years ago,
2020.
2020. And basically a year ago, they came to a reality. You bought this property we're at here. And then fast forward to September of this year.
With the help of you and your team. That's how we got to know each other.
Minor details.
Yeah.
This is an amazing property on the river and in a great location. So a dream come true was the move here. But then fast forward to this year's hunting season. Talk to me about your first season on your own property. Well, first off, that's the first time in your life where you've truly had like your own, I guess, not food plot, but your own opportunity to really track animals on your own property, to do scouting, to, have different bucks that you find and locate and, get to know, for lack of a better term. This was your first experience with this on your own place. What was that like?
Yeah, totally my first experience doing something like this on our own property, and we're really lucky in the property that we have is just great deer habitat.
Yeah.
Big riparian area, very private back here, not a lot of other hunters.
There's
really
no pressure.
Yeah,
it's a pressure-free area.
No pressure.
You got private on all sides.
Except from the lions, lots of lion pressure.
Yeah, minor detail.
But no pressure. And so I moved here last September, and I kind of just was in the shuffle of moving and getting set up during deer
You guys
season.
have had chaos to get even to this point of even being able to hunt this year.
Oh, totally, yeah. Moving across the country and buying a big piece of property and having a
learning
kid
curve.
all in that.
Oh my
we
goodness.
Had a baby in March. We got a puppy. There's a lot going on.
Your wife changing jobs, all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah. Lots of life shuffling, but all good stuff.
Yeah.
And so last year I did get a deer tag. I met some friends here locally, a bunch of them through the church, and great guys, and then they're just taking me out hunting and showing me a bunch of the logging roads, and did some hunting on public land, and ended up harvesting a little, you guys call that a forked horn?
A little forky.
Yeah, a little forky.
Little tasty boy.
Yeah, so that was really fun. I don't know. That was success last year. Like, I just wanted to get out and see the country and go hunting with somebody. And the guy I was hunting with shot a really nice buck that night. And he was one of my first friends here. So I was like, this is great. We'll double up. And this will be how I remember my first Oregon blacktail. And it was great. We had a great time. We packed it off the mountain, did that whole thing. And it was awesome. But I kind of knew that, like, after that, reflecting on, I was like, next year, I want to get a big blacktail. And it didn't start as like hunting on our property, but that's kind of what I went into the season with the goal of. And so springtime comes, get through turkey season, get a couple Oregon turkeys under my belt, which was super cool. And then get some trail cameras up and going see what's going on with the deer.
So were you surprised with what you found once you got the trail camera set up?
100%. So I got 3 trail cameras, 2 cell cameras, and then one other one I just had. And I put 1 cell camera, a spot on our property. I was like, this feels like a good funnel pinch point. And I put 1 up on the hill down the road, just up on public land, just kind of like see what's out there. And then one of the non-cellular ones I put just down the ways, not on our property, but at some public really close by. And the cell camera on our property, I remember literally sitting in bed one night, flipping through the photos. I was about to go to sleep, and it was like early July. So the bucks are growing antlers, starting to show a frame, but still like kind of nubby. And I saw this deer that was just way outside of his ears. And I like sat up in bed, and I was like, Sammy, I don't think I'm gonna be able to sleep tonight. She was like, she shook her head. So fast forward, the next day, I literally went out and pulled my other cameras down and brought them back to our property and was like, I'm going all in on our property. After I saw that one deer. And then throughout the summer, I started just paying attention and watching the deer. And this buck was hanging around with a group of 3 really good bucks, like really, really good bucks. This one deer in particular was like,
and these are true blacktails.
True blacktails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oregon blacktails.
Yeah, so a really good Oregon blacktail is like a 140-inch buck. Like
Yep.
that's a really good deer.
Yeah, and it took me a while to acclimate to a good blacktail because they're very different than whitetails. The frames are different, the body sizes are different. So I had to ask you and Mike and a bunch of other people. I was like, okay, how big is this deer? Is this a big one?
The answer was huge.
Yeah. And a
But
couple of people I showed that deer and they're like, you should not show that picture to anybody. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that because I know where that is. And anyway, so I'm watching these deer all summer. I'm getting hyped up and I mean, our property is fairly large, but it's not like it's big enough where it's the full home range for a deer. So they're kind of, and I'm not baiting a ton. I baited a little bit with just
which
alfalfa.
that's legal in Oregon.
It's legal in Oregon. And you can't really do corn like we did in Texas here out of a feeder because the bears will destroy it.
Sure. Oh,
So
yeah.
I was just walking out a little bit of alfalfa in front of my camera to try to get them to stop in front of my camera long enough to get a good picture. So I'm watching these 3 bucks all summer and they'd kind of come and go maybe every other day, every third day. I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait to buy my tag. And I'm gonna wait until in Oregon, you have to buy your tag the day before season starts. And so you have to pick archery or rifle. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait all the way till the day before archery or like the week of archery. And if they're still coming around, I'm gonna buy my tag and I'm just gonna commit to archery.
Yep.
So fast forward, late August, season's coming up, deer are still around. At this point, I'm like,
So at this point, you had 3 or 4 bucks picked out that you
3 bucks.
you've been tracking. 3.
3 bucks
Three.
I was keeping track of. I hung a tree stand. So this one camera in the middle of our property was kind of where the action was. They like to bed kind of in the area behind it. The river's close by for water. They had good food out in the fields.
Yeah.
I mean, everything they needed was there. And so they were in front of this camera every day, most times, every other day sometimes. So I hung a tree stand on one side at 30 yards, and you gave me a ground blind that I put on the other side at 30 yards. So I was like, okay, morning, wind direction's coming out of the east. I'm going to sit in the tree stand. Afternoon, wind direction shifts. I'll sit in the ground blind. I'll have the wind right
Yep.
both times. I was like, I'm going all in.
Yeah.
So I was super pumped. The season, I buy my tag.
And he was pumped. Like,
Yeah, pumped. Like
yes.
little kid going on his first deer hunting trip.
Yes.
Pumped. Like all I could talk about.
Yeah. So this was compound bow.
Compound bow.
Yep.
Which part of the problem for the elk hunt I just went on is I think I was shooting my compound bow and my trad bow
Going back and forth.
interchangeably throughout the summer.
Ugh.
So I like 2 days before the season is the last time I saw the big buck. The big buck. And when I say big buck, I think this deer would have easily gone 170.
Oh, yeah.
Which for a blacktail is like putting it in such an elite class.
It would have definitely gone in Pope and Young.
100%. I mean, it might have been like top, I don't know, a couple dozen in Boone and Crockett. I mean, it was a big blacktail.
Yeah.
Big blacktail. All kinds of trash, like 9 points on one side, like 7 points on the other, split brow tines, whatever you guys call them. I still can't get used to the Western naming convention of deer.
Don't worry.
But anyways, so this deer stopped showing up like probably 3 days before season. And I'm not that worried about it because like they'd come and gone a little bit. So I was like, okay, he's here. We'll be fine. We got 3 days. So I start hunting. Like 5 days goes by. I'm literally sitting in the blind every morning, every night. Do not see this deer.
Are you seeing the others?
I saw one of the others came in like 1.5 times. Like he kind of came in like out in the field once. I could see him through binoculars. Came in front of my camera once at 30 yards, and it was a great deer. It was the number 2 buck, probably 140-inch deer.
So a shooter to everybody else in the world in Southern Oregon except for you at that moment.
Yeah, and if you didn't know the other buck existed, it would have been a no-doubter shooting that buck. But because I knew the other buck existed, I let it walk.
Yeah.
And then, so we're like 5 days into the season. My wife's getting frustrated that I'm, not at the house for bedtime. I'm not in the house in the morning.
Yeah, that whole balance
thing. This
thing.
is getting a little rough.
Now, was that before or after you found the cattail?
That was before.
Okay.
So we're like 5 days into the season. And at this point, I'm getting kind of worried. I'm like, this deer has not showed up for over a week. That has never happened.
Yeah.
It's like, is there another guy bow hunting around here that killed this deer? I don't know. Did he get poached? I don't know. And then I think it was the next day you came over and we were about to do a workout and I had run down to I went tubing with my kids in the afternoon. We're getting out of the river. And we get out of the river and we're walking back down the trail and 20 vultures jump up.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
like, something's dead over there. And
Yeah.
immediately I thought it was the big buck. I thought somebody poached it. They stashed it over there. I'm going to find a headless deer.
Yeah.
This is going to stink and I'm going to be really pissed. Not what it was. I walked over there. It was a deer, but it was killed by a lion and it
Yep.
was like the number 3 buck.
Yep.
So there were 3 bucks. Number 3 buck is laying dead right in front of me. And
And that was a big bodied deer.
big bodied, mature
It
blacktail.
made the rack look small on that. It was not a small,
It was
like it's
probably
120.
120. I'd say 125
Yeah,
maybe.
easy.
Maybe even 130.
In this area, a buck that most people shoot every day of the
Oh,
week.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the number 3 out of this group of 3 bucks. So now I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, there's a lion on the property killing deer. I haven't seen the big buck in now it's like 9 days. I'm kind of panicked. I'm like, now the only deer of the 3 I watched all summer is the 140-inch deer, and I'm like, time's a ticking. That cat's hunting the same ground I'm hunting. So at that point, I'm like, I told my wife, I'm all in. I'm shooting the number 2 buck. He comes out again, he's done.
Yeah.
And so it took me a couple more days. I think it was like the 8th or 9th day of the season. He came out. And it was worked out just beautifully. It was a Sunday morning. My kids are home from school. It was cool. He came out first thing in the morning, came in right in front of the camera.
Hmm.
Perfect shot, heart shot. He ran 30 yards and piled up in the woods. And it just worked out perfect. And honestly, it was, a day I'll never forget because I mean, I think the first day of the season, I was getting out of bed and I told my wife, I was like, I've literally looked forward to this my entire life, like being able to hunt on a
The
property
dream come true.
that I like, live on, and I get to kind of cultivate and watch this. And so it's like
Hmm.
it's totally different in a backcountry hunt where you go in there looking for adventure. It's like this is like this thing that you kind of build up every day, right? Like when you hang the stand, you get a little more excited. Every
Hmm.
time you practice, you get a little more excited. Every time you get a new picture, you get a little more excited. And
Sure.
it finally comes, you get to go hunting, and you're like, this is awesome. And
Hmm.
hunting from a blind, I think the cool thing is like you're just relaxed, you're sitting there in nature, you're literally sitting down, but then one of your target animals comes in and just the adrenaline spike.
Hmm.
It's like 0 to 60 in no time.
Hmm.
And I've gotten pretty good at managing that in those situations, but it's still like the fun part is like that surge of
Oh yeah.
excitement and trying to manage it, right? And make a
Well,
clean shot.
I am literally the worst person I know at sitting still in a blind. Like I have attempted it. I don't know how many times, maybe half dozen times. I don't think I've ever made it past about minute 45, like in my life. Like I was up in the Wallowas a few years ago, and it should have been super exciting. There was elk around. I knew there were elk coming into this blind, and I made it 30 minutes. I look up, and there's a bear. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wasn't really in a huge hurry to shoot a bear. I want to shoot an elk. He comes in, takes off, and I'm like, I made it another like 14 minutes, and I'm like, no, I gotta go find elk. I can't just sit here.
See, I love the adventure of backcountry hunting, but I can sit in a blind. I have done a sun up to sundown sit.
See, I'm gonna have to learn that skill. I do not have it yet.
I just find
Maybe I need
everything
an
so
audiobook.
interesting.
Oh,
Like I feel like at every second, like he's gonna step out.
maybe
And
I'm
so
just that shallow that I'm like, I gotta control this all the time. I gotta go find something.
I don't know, I keep myself on edge. Just like was like, oh, is that the sound of him coming out? And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh no, that's a
Well, it was
chipmunk.
funny. Saturday night, a buddy of mine came out with my son and I, he wants to become a hunter. He's a great shooter, Matt. I don't know if you met, and phenomenal shooter. And he just came out to try to learn a little bit. And we're sitting there. It was weird because I've been with Mike and some of the other guys who are just always positive and always confident. And I was sitting there looking through the glass, and I'm like, at that point where like I can become discouraged right now. Nothing's going to come out. And I'm like, no, this is the time when things start happening. Like I know the facts. This is when deer start moving. And I was just like, nope, this is going to happen. Like we're going to start seeing deer any moment. Like just knowing. And it was not 30 seconds later. I'm like, oh, there's deer. And then it continued. We kept seeing more deer. And it was like that. I don't want to say power positivity is so cheesy, but there's a power in just staying focused and staying, knowing the facts and going, yes, this is going to happen. It's going to, there's a good chance it's going to happen, whatever it is. Like you said, keeping yourself on edge, telling yourself that story over and over, like, okay, this could definitely happen tonight. Absolutely could happen. Absolutely could happen.
I
And
think the difference between morning hunting and afternoon hunting is that it's easier to convince yourself that in the morning. Because I feel like in the morning, I'm waiting, like the first 10 minutes are going to be the best.
Hmm.
And then if they're not, I'm like, oh, this morning's a bust. It ain't happening.
Oh yeah.
Because it was like, you just know the morning, as the morning goes on, there's less activity.
Hmm.
So the hunt gets less exciting as the morning wears on,
Yep.
which I love morning hunts because you got the whole day to track, you got the whole day to deal with cleaning an animal.
Hmm.
Like I prefer morning hunts.
Oh yeah.
That being said, evening hunts get more exciting every minute you sit there
Correct.
because the most activity is generally like right at the end.
Oh yeah.
So like I don't know, there's that the upside of evening hunts is like you kind of look forward to the
Hmm.
whole thing.
Hmm. No, I agree. You know what's interesting that you say that because we're commenting about sitting in a blind. Now, if I'm sitting on glass with a big view, I can sit there all day, almost all day. Like I
Hmm.
don't know what the psychology difference between being in a blind and in a small area is versus like being able to see several miles. Like I can sit there without any issues for hours on end,
Yeah.
butt numb, back hurting because you're like, "Ah, I've been sitting behind these optics for I
Yeah.
don't know how long, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, back to this deer. I mean, it'll be interesting if that big buck ever turns up because
Yeah.
I never found a carcass close by, and I've got access to the neighbor's property to go for hikes. Can't hunt it,
Hmm.
but I've done like the big circle to see if I could find
Hmm.
another lion killed carcass and never found it. And I don't know. Maybe he'll show back. My wife got her first ever deer tag for rifle season, so I'm kind of like
Nice.
in my mind hoping maybe
So this will be her first
first
deer?
deer hunt ever.
Sweet.
I've already written the story that she's going to kill this 170-inch blacktail. I'm going to have to stare on that in my fireplace the rest of my life as her first deer,
Yeah.
which I would love for that to happen. But, it'll be interesting to see if it does end up turning back up or shows up on some hunting forum.
Well, it's going to be cool to watch year after year, this property and how it performs and what you're able to do to improve the habitat down by the river and everything else. It's going to be cool. I
Yeah,
mean, you haven't really had a chance to make those, the big changes that you'll be able to make over the next 10 to 15 years. So it's only going to get better.
hopefully. Yeah, I'm a little discouraged that the three big mature blacktails that I knew about at the end of the season are two of them are confirmed dead, and one of them is missing in action.
Yeah,
So we got to
that's true.
start over.
Yeah, they'll move
We
in.
got a bunch of forkies right now with a bunch
But
of
there's a bunch of
potential.
does in here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those big bucks will come out of the country. It'll happen. It'll be cool to look at your trail cams come, if you're going to set them up just for fun for over Thanksgiving through December
Hmm.
during the rut, you should definitely see what shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be interesting.
Anyway, well, dreams come true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
That's
great
the moral of
blacktail.
that story.
Yeah, great. I mean, just super pumped and thankful
But the
for.
deer is only the deer is the culmination, like the cherry on top of the dream coming true of, fulfilling, moving to Oregon, being on a river, all those other things that,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, and we just started eating on that deer this past weekend, and anyone that tells you blacktail's not good is lying.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, especially because this buck is down here in good food.
Yeah. He was fat.
Yeah.
Very fat. I mean, this deer probably easily weighed 225.
Yeah. For a blacktail, that's big deer.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for bringing me this sweet property.
Absolutely.